Hello, this is Graham Nicholls from Affinity Gospel Churches in Partnership. We are based in the UK and we're looking at some news stories. Big story, of course, across the world is the bombing of Iran by Israel and American forces. And we want to pray that peace and justice would reign, that in that really difficult situation where we don't really have the wisdom to know quite what should have happened and what should happen now, we can pray that even in the darkness of this moment, that there would be peace and justice and somehow a good outcome, and an outcome that is good for people and that is glorifying to God and in some way directs people towards God and his word, that one who comes from that troubled area, who has so much history in his word in that area. Also this week, there was some good news actually, that a case that was taken on by one of our partners, Christian Concern, of a man in Malta, was actually concluded successfully for them. This is a man who is what would be described as ex-gay. He was practicing as a gay man and came out of that and changed both his view on it and his practice. And he was actually being prosecuted for talking about that, giving his testimony and talking about that as a good thing and recommending some kind of counseling for others. And he was prosecuted for that. He appealed against a conviction and a sentence that he had. And finally, after quite a lot of delays, in Malta this is, he was successful. So we can give thanks for that. Obviously, it's a controversial subject even for Christians as to precisely the value and role of any kind of therapy. But we, I think, as all Christians, would want to uphold the freedom of people, especially those Christian people who want to speak about the need to live as Christ calls us to live, and to get any help that we may find useful to help us to be faithful as believers. Another story in the news this week is the possibility that so-called water burials will be coming to the UK. It's something that I think is used in USA and Canada and other places, and maybe coming to Scotland. It's where, rather than a cremation or a traditional burial, that the body is essentially boiled in water with some chemicals, which means that it decomposes much quickly in just a space of a couple of hours. Now, of course, we know that the resurrected bodies that we will be given will be new. They won't be composed of parts of our original body, as it were. So in that sense, it doesn't matter what happens to the body in terms of being able to be resurrected with a new body. But I think personally there is something quite dignified and hopeful about burying someone in the ground with their body as a whole. There's something about a respect for the body because we will be given new bodies in the new heavens and the new earth. There's something about, in a sense, having a place from which we rise. Now, I know, of course, God can gather us however we have died and however the parts of our body have been decomposed or even scattered somewhere. God is, of course, able to do that. And it's our spirits being with Christ is the most important thing, ready for the resurrection. But I still think there's something symbolically and hopefully good about burial. So I'm not particularly in favour of the water burial idea. Another story around this week, which is fascinating really, is that apparently, according to a survey in the UK, a third of Gen Z men think wives should obey their husbands. It's an extraordinary statistic. Also related to that, there's a similar percentage that think that men should initiate sex and not women in a relationship. We, as Christians, don't think simply taken as read that those statements are correct, not at all. But it does speak to the fact that having really removed the whole idea of biblical male and female roles as taught in the Bible, that our society is trying to reach for something. And although people would say that they would accept kind of complete equality and egalitarian view of everything to do with men and women in any kind of roles, it seems as though there's something still there in men that help them to realize there is a role for them set out by God. They don't know really what it is, but they can sense that it's something different. And I think that's fascinating and something that we as Christians can speak into. We have a much better story than some simple story about obedience or about men being in charge in that kind of brutal sense, misogynistic sense. But we do have a good story about how God has designed us as men and as women to act out our roles as He has called us to in His Word. And Christians have a lot to say about that, and it's good.